Hi, drummers of the world. This is Max Weinberg from Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band, and I am sitting in the incredible theater at the Guitar Hotel, the Hard Rock Seminole in Hollywood, Florida, where we're about to play our normal 3-hour show tonight. But I have the pleasure of being here with David Frangioni and his associates from Modern Drummer to give you a little bit of an idea of my drum set. I'm of the generation that calls it a drum set. Late 60s, they started referring to it as a drum kit. To me, it's a drum set. All my old drum catalogs that I still have, it was drum set. So if you'll allow me, I'll refer to it as my drum set. 4 drums. It's all I've ever used all my life. One time, there's a picture of me taken on one song from 1980's The River album where I had to do a 3-tom roll and I had an extra tom-tom. It was only on that one song. So this is the same set I've been playing basically since 1957. Not the same drums, but the same setup. And like all of our hero, Buddy Rich once said, you know, when you're playing, you shouldn't have to move your elbows. So everything is very close. I can hit everything however I play, whether it's traditional or match grip, without really moving too much. So I'm delighted to be able to participate in this. Many of you know me as the drummer for Bruce, also the band leader on the late night programs. I'm mainly known today as the father of Slipknot's Jay Weinberg, which makes me incredibly proud that he has taken drumming to the level that he is. And we hope to run down his rig. Fortunately, I don't have to buy him drums anymore because he's got about 5 times as many drums as I do. So this is your basic drum set, 9x13, 16x16, 14x22, 5.5-inch snare. By the way, these are DW drums. My snare, this snare is a Ludwig Supraphonic that I got when I was a sophomore in high school. That would have been 1966. And it is the actual drum that I used on the recording of the song Born in the USA. We've tricked it out a lot because you don't want strings breaking during a concert, but it's the sound that's on that record and pretty much every record I played with Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band. These are new cymbals. I've always played Zildjian. I still have the first one I got when I was 7 years old, would have been 1958. It was $23 retail from my drum teacher, Gene Thaler, who actually in 1970 moved about 5 miles away from where I'm sitting right now. The late Gene Thaler, a wonderful big band drummer. And these are K-Zildjians. As I've gotten older, everything your father probably has told you if you're my age, I'll be 72 in a couple of weeks, or if you're a young kid, protect your hearing. Well, of course, I didn't. So you naturally age, but as a rock musician playing with loud guitar players, I have certainly damaged my hearing. So the K-Zildjians, they're a little darker, they're a little softer, and they work great in this application. 20-inch rock ride. I got these new cymbals for my hi-hats. They're called Fat Hats. They're fantastic. I used the Zildjian, the regular, I guess they were New Beats for many, many, many years until they came out with this year and they gave me a set and you can really dig in. They've got that crunch you want and a really distinct high end. And you know, you're always reading about, well, heads have definition and pinpoint and this and that. There really is a difference. When I play, generally, whether it's with my little bebop band or my big band or even my big 23-piece orchestra, I do a lot of rudimental drumming, a lot of double stroke rolls. So it's not just hitting on the backbeat, it's a lot of, and you want it to be responsive. So we're using a Remo CS head that's an ambassador weight, but it's got a little extra protection because in the E Street Band, I'm known as the king of the big beat. And that's what I do here. I play the big beat. And here's another little tip. Drummers, no matter how big your drum set, no matter how small it is, whatever you're playing, you have to play for the show and for the music. So you want to be song appropriate. And when I play Bruce Springsteen's music, I go into that mental space and drumming space of I'm doing the show. I'm there to support Bruce Springsteen and the band in the show. So it's simpler drumming than you might have seen me do on TV with my own band, but it's not easy. Simple is not easy. My dear friend, the late, great, iconic Charlie Watts would be the first to tell you that. Simple is not easy. Okay, for a little tour around my drum set and how we've tricked it out. Now, during a Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band show, you can always be sure of one thing. You can never be sure of what Bruce might do. You have to be prepared for everything. We have a book, as they say, of songs, several hundred. I've forgotten how many. Most of them I've committed to memory, but in case he calls something that we haven't played in 20 years, right here I have this little contraption called an iPad. And all of my sheet music that I've written out is digitized, and it will instantaneously, without me even asking for it, if I need it, come up on this screen. So while I have a very good memory, it does jog my memory to see the sheet music that I've written out. Sometimes it's the little scribble charts that I've used in the studio. And sometimes it's actually, I've hired orchestrators, depending on the amount of time I can devote to it, orchestrator to, just write out the drum part for me. So it actually looks like real charts. My little chicken scratch I can understand, but I wouldn't recommend it to anybody else. Now, as I said, you can never be sure of what Bruce might do. And today we're in the Hard Rock Seminole Casino, their live venue, which is about 7,000 seats. For us, it's a relatively, well, not relatively, it's actually a very, very small place to play. Bruce will turn it into a nightclub tonight. And when we play bigger venues, stadiums and such, very often Bruce will go to the sides of the stage where I can't see him, and he'll give me a cue to hit a shot or to do something, because I'm in direct link with him at all times. My job is to translate rhythmically what he needs in the moment. That's the job. It's not to do drum solos. It's not to be flash. It's to support what he's doing. So in order to do that, when he goes out of my actual visual field, we have many, many cameras here that are operated both in the house and remotely. One of them is dedicated to wherever Bruce goes. And if he goes behind me, if he goes on the sides of the stage, it won't happen here because I can see, that camera will show up on this little monitor here. So I'm always in touch. So I literally can, in real time, pick up a cue from Bruce that, without looking at him, I can look right at the monitor. That really helps. Over here on this little, I guess it's a TV monitor. And by the way, all of this was designed by Matt Payne out of, it could be really helpful if I had X, and then he'd figure out a way how to do it. So right here, this is a teleprompter for lyrics. It's a bit of a fail-safe, because I don't sing, obviously. I don't need to know the lyrics, but I like to sometimes look at the lyrics, and if I have any doubt what song we're going to play, generally it'll show up on this. So this is a kind of a fail-safe button for me that but you never want to trust it completely. You've always got to stay in touch with the boss who's leading the show. So that's our visual reinforcement. Now, we use no electronics. This is all acoustic. We experimented with that in the 80s, and I'm not a big fan. I like playing sticks. When I started, it was, drum skins. In fact, my drum teacher taught me how to tuck a drum head into the hoop, because you didn't get these. These were expensive, the plastic heads, the Mehler heads. So this is acoustic. What you see here, these two pads, there are two songs in our book that I did not play on. Actually, one I did, Tunnel of Love. One I didn't, because it was all samples. And there was a sample I needed to do that it only happens when we play the song called Death to My Hometown, where I have to be doing three things here, but I can quickly on the upbeat to three, hit that and a drum roll happens. But I have to hit it before I want it to sound. So that's what this is for. This is for the bass drum sound on the song Tunnel of Love and the bass drum sound on the song Streets of Philadelphia, which is sort of a hip-hoppy 808 kind of sound that we like to incorporate. That's the extent of the electronics. Everything else is created right here. This cymbal I've recently added, which is I have a cymbal from the 60s, which is a 22-inch thin crash. And I've used it on record, I've never used it live, and it's very precious to me. So the closest I could get was a Zildjian Sound Lab prototype. You can't buy this, but it's a thin, this is a 20-inch thin crash that I only use at the end if I'm coming off a fill to a soft decrescendo in a song. I just hit it really lightly and it spreads. It's sort of, you don't really hear the attack, you hear the like that. So I use it sparingly. Try not to play too many cymbals. Cymbals, I used to in my youth play cymbals on almost every backbeat. I'm very selective when I hit a cymbal crash. When I hit a cymbal crash, it's part of the arrangement. It should be in there. And as I've gotten older, I've simplified and simplified and simplified to get to the essence of what I need to do in this show. Now, if I'm playing with my little quintet and I'm playing on the same drum set, but I'm playing, say, an Art Blakey chart, well, I'm there to support the soloist, so it's much more drumistic, you might say, but I have that in my background. And while we were off for the last 6 years, I've done 300 of my own shows. So I never stop playing, because if you stop playing, if you get the call, you won't be ready. My physical trainer has a great line. He says, if you stay ready, you won't have to get ready. His name is Giovanni Roselli of Roselli Fitness, and he trained me for this show. At 72, in a few weeks, I have to play a minimum of 3 hours a night. And the other thing is, I can't decide when to stop. Bruce can decide when to stop, so I have to be able to go longer than him. It takes willpower, it takes the right nutrition, it takes the right amount of sleep, and it takes attention to detail and taking care of business. Because bottom line, this is a business. For all you younger drummers, I'm asked to play this all the time when I do clinics. Play the opening to the Conan O'Brien show. So for all of you who ever wondered what that is, here it is. Then I look into the camera. So I'm delighted again to be with my friends from Modern Drummer to give you a little insight into what I use as my rig. I'm going to turn it over to Matt Payne and Troy Milner, without whom, believe me, I would not be able to do this level of playing every night. And they've been with our show, our tour for decades in the studio and on the road. And it's not just me. I may get a little bit of the spotlight. Some people refer to me as the drummer who's slightly out of focus over Bruce Springsteen's right shoulder. But without Troy and Matt supporting me, it would be infinitely harder. So Matt Payne, take it away.
Everything that we've done on this kit, it's all just based around facilitation. It's giving Max all the tools that he needs to be able to perform to the highest level. That's it. So everything we've come up with to communicating with lights and the way that Troy and I can talk, the way that Max and I can speak to each other, down to when we come down to my world, you'll see video and all sorts of elements that allow us to provide him with that edge to do what this gig requires. Perfect. So this is where I sit in relation to Max, and this is kind of an overview of my world, and you'll see this is our when he talked about the charts. So this is some of the charts, and just to give you an idea of how many songs are in this thing, it's pretty ridiculous. And at any given time, I can pull up one of these songs. It immediately goes to him. I've got a microphone. I talk to him, and I speak to Troy. If I see something, so these two cameras are in particular because lots of times, especially when we start getting into festivals, things like that, fans bring signs and they want to hear songs, and Bruce will pull that sign, and if I catch it, I will actually tell Max what's coming next. And so it's about the efficiency of what's happening. And again, we communicate through lights and switches all night. And so we're using verbal communication, but predominantly we kind of speak in like Morse code.
So that pedal there is connected to Troy, and I can talk to him during the show through that mic if I need to. But he's so good I never need to. Same thing with Matt. These pedals will communicate with Matt, both with a light and through his headphones.
Oh, awesome.
So if I need him, or, for example, if there's a song change, and in the wildness that's up here, if I don't know it, there's a blue light over here that'll come on, that'll basically indicate song change coming up.
So he'll flashlight to me, I flashlight to him, and it depends on what he needs. And then he might, here I also have the teleprompter, which Max spoke about earlier. I've got these two different camera angles coming from the front and the back. So this is the camera that's on Bruce all the time. This is the camera that is the audience camera. So we can see everything. And then this is the camera that I have actually on Max. So if he needs anything dire immediately, I can really attend to his needs very, very quickly. And then we were talking about the electronics. I've got a Roland SPD-SX Pro down at the bottom, and just a variety of parts and spares and things like that. That being said, Max hits, very aggressively, but also doesn't really break a lot of things. Like it's a very low maintenance situation if it's done right. So I always tell people, if you see me up on that riser, we're probably not having a great night. Everything is done in a way so it can just be very transparent. Like
what's the software up on the screen?
This is the Roland SPD-SX software. So it allows me to file through the patches as well. So, which is a very, very nice feature.
And what is the SPS-DX Pro doing?
It's where all the samples for the electronics on the pads that are up there. And so they all live in my world. So any moves like that, those are all done by me. So all he has to think about is playing drums. So, and I keep an incredible amount of notes in archive, and lots of times I'm kind of the, Max kind of references me as like the archivist. And so set changes, moves, things like that. And lots of times we'll discuss like what's happening. Kind of the next day we'll go, hey, I noticed this, or I saw this, or this is happening. So we've got a very, I would say like a very musical relationship in what we do.
And then let's take us from the top of that rack.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, great. So I have, let's see here. Also, his headphone amplifiers. So his monitors come from Troy. His signal comes from here. And then we have custom built inputs in the side of his seat. But they come down to me and then back up. And then I have a Radio Pro D8. I've got a Radio SW8 for redundancy, two Motu Ultralay Mark Vs, and then this is a headphone amplifier that allows me to mix to hear either to do some monitor mix changes on the fly if need be, if we need to hear something specific. Well, on this tour, we've been changing tom heads every other show, snare drum every show. So we're using Remo heads, coated Emperor on the bass drum, very old school with an old packing blanket that just sounds like it's very thuddy. So we've got coated reverse dot, CS dot on the snare drum, coated ambassadors on the bottom of the toms, coated Emperors on the top of the toms. Yeah, they make a killer sound. I mean, those are just like standard
No muffling other than the bass drum?
Yeah, no muffling. I think I maybe have like a quarter piece of moon gel on the snare drum.
That's it.
Yeah, just for consistency throughout the show. But yeah, no muffling at all. Everything is wide
And then
open.
what's the back? Do you have a backup snare?
Yeah, it's the same.
Oh, okay.
We just have another one.
5x14. So
Yeah, exactly.
Is
Yep,
it another Keystone 60s?
exactly.
Okay.
Yep, 100%. The drums are just standard collector series maple, DW. I mean,
Maple.
they were built new in 2016. They were built for the River Tour that we did. And we got them out of the boxes, and they were just like perfect. Like out of the box. We were just like, oh man. And the kit is really special. When it's not on the road, it actually lives in Bruce's studio. So, and the engineers there were very, very upset when we took it out to bring it back on the road. It takes different head combinations really, really well. It doesn't matter what you put on it. It just sounds great.
Drumsticks?
Yeah, Vader. It's a custom Vader model that he uses. And actually, when he switched to Vader, I really encourage him. He's never used any labeling on his sticks ever. And we actually I got him to put his name on his sticks. Name and signature. It's very cool. So it's based on a 5A. It's just the taper and the head is just slightly different than their standard model. And also it has no lacquer on it. It's just a naked finish.
Because he doesn't wear gloves, right? Or every time.
No.
So that's-
Nope. So, but it's a great product. Yeah. Very consistent.
And bass drum pedals are Axis.
Axis bass drum pedals. And he's used those since before I came on. He's used those forever. You'd have to ask him how long he's used those, but it's been a really long
And
time.
of course, always single bass.
Yep.
Single pedal.
Yep. Single
The
pedal.
rest DW hardware.
Yep. Yeah. Everything is just, it all holds up. It all is just built like very robust. And he's very much a creature of habit. So a lot of the things, there's a lot of little custom hardware pieces that DW has built us over the years, and they just hold up. So we just keep using them. Some of the hardware on the kit is 25 years old. So you never know it, but yeah. In my normal life, I actually am a musical and a creative director. So I've got a business. I live in Nashville. And so this is the only gig that I actually do drum teching for. And I have a very unique relationship with Max. When I came in, I understood that it was bigger than just the drums. As you guys can see, it's 3 drums. It's not simple, but it is in a sense. But it's all the other little nuance that he needed to understand his relationship with Bruce and how to really dive into that. And that's what's made, I think, Max and I's relationship so unique. I started my career as a drummer, so I have a certain level of empathy and understanding of what it feels like to be on that seat. And I just always filter. It's like, okay, if I was up there, what would I need? What would I want to help facilitate this gig, which is like no other gig in the world? Yeah, the end result is that you just kind of go in with the mindset that anything and everything is possible. And if that's your mindset, then you can go in and get custom pieces made. You can get things done, and you understand what his needs are every day. Yeah, it's all really unique, right? So it's like, everything down to, there's this guy in Los Angeles who has designed, and custom fitted all this hardware with these plates. So everything sets up in the same spot every night. It's very unique. It's very, very unique. And everything is kind of custom made to a certain extent because of the fact, like he said, he wants everything to be very tight. And sometimes we're working within millimeters to try to fit something in that he needs to help him service the gig, to help service what his responsibilities are with Bruce. So that's very unique. He also doesn't like things to be very visual. So as you can see, we don't have a bunch of big mic stands and things like that. Everything is very hidden. And when he wants the layman audience, all he wants them to see is a set of drums. And when you look at it and you don't know, all you think drums, that's all you see. You don't see all these little hidden microphones. Even moving this one from chrome to black because it's more black over here. Just little things. It's very, very unique.
I basically interesting. Why?
Oh,
Why the directional mic?
great question. So this mic right here is actually hooked to this. And what happens is this gig is it's a circus. It's pure chaos. So when Bruce starts to go off the planned set list, what happens is this opens up this mic and Max can hear what Bruce is saying in this realm. So that's it. I mean, everything from when I started, we were using paper charts, so I helped bring a lot of technology into this situation that's made his life exponentially easier. And just my goal is that he doesn't have to think about it. All I want him to think about is playing drums. Let Troy handle all the rest of it. And if that's how if we're that fluid into our interaction in the show, that I've done a good job.
Hi guys, my name's Troy Milner, monitor stage right for Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band. So on this tour, working with Max Weinberg, I've been here, 21 years I think. Math is hard, I'm not real sure how long it's been a while. We've changed things a little bit over the years and we've evolved a little bit each year and gotten better at things. We have a pretty good line of communication, even though sometimes he doesn't speak to me. I read lips, body language. Some of the things that new this year, finally, I'm using triggers. And when you hear the word triggers, everyone gives you a bad look or a bad, really dude? But the triggers are just to open the gates on the drums. It allows me to relax the gate a little bit so it makes the drum sing a little better. We are running at some pretty loud volumes in the ear mix. Max's ear mix is very loud. Everybody's a little older, as am I. We want things loud and big. So getting the gates just right for his fills. When he does a light fill, I'm on the gates as well, helping keep them open. But the triggers allow me to relax the thresholds of the gates, and it just makes the drums more natural, and you don't even really hear that there's a gate in play. So it's very natural sounding. It's just a basic piezo type trigger that we put on the shell of each drum, and it allows me to open the thresholds a little quicker than if you were to actually use the mic. A lot of guys are doing it. I'm late to the party. I'm mad at myself for not doing it sooner. But yeah, now I've learned about it and I will never not do that. So.
And is that trigger coming into the side chain?
Yeah, so how it works, I thought it was so complicated when people first explained it to me, but it's really easy and it's not my idea. I stole it from some friends that work on other tours. And all it is you take the trigger and you land it in another channel in your console for each drum, for each trigger. So say for the bass drum, I have a trigger stuck on the bottom of the bass drum. It lands in another channel in my desk. I just make sure the levels are fine on it. And then I use that channel, that trigger channel, to key sidechain, basically, the gate on the kick microphone. So you just go to your gates on whatever console. On this one, I'm using the Digico Quantum 7, but it'll work on any desk. Just on every gate on terminal or on board on the desk, you just go to the side chain or the key. On the Digico, it's called key listen. Just assign that to the trigger for that drum, and then your threshold's going to change so much, and it's just so much more musical, in my opinion. And so I started using it last year or 2 years ago. I don't do monitors from any tours other than this one, but I was doing front of house for a band called Korn, and we used it on there with Ray Lugier's kit. And it was a game changer with his massive, loud drum kit. So that was one of the things that we just implemented this year on Bruce and with Max's kit. And so far it's working fantastic. It's taken the workload off me versus if you just use the gate on the mic itself with no trigger firing it. I was constantly adjusting gate thresholds, constantly for the volumes we're running at. I just can't find that sweet spot, but with the trigger I can, and it's taking my workload way down, so I can focus on other things during the show for Max. And some of the other things that we do, I have a multi-view camera, so I can see the backside. I always can see Bruce, which helps me. Max, I think, also has one of these feeds on his kit. he always needs to hear Bruce, no matter where Bruce is in the theater, stadium, arena, wherever we're at. So what it allows me to do is keep that vocal in the right spot for what Max needs to hear, because sometimes Bruce gets in an environment where it's too loud. So it allows me to see what Bruce is doing, and I can just pull that vocal up and down whenever he needs, while still focusing. If you see how I sit in the chair while I mix. I look through the monitor right at Max the entire show. So it's I'm pretty busy. It's a constant mix. It's not just I'm proactive. I'm not reactive. So I'm making changes for what he needs, what some of the other band members need before they ask me. And that just you read minds a little bit, but also I've just been here so long, I kind of know what they want for the most part. Even if it's a song they haven't done in a few years, if they just kind of look at me, I know to bang into their mix and just take a listen. I'm like, oh yeah, they need this adjusted or whatever. So everything's programmed. All the other band members I take care of are full automation program. Max, I do old school. I'm mixing him like I'm mixing front of house. So if he needs something changed, I'm on it. Every band member's got a VCA, and this is just for Max. I mix him direct, like old school. I know I have a digital desk and I can recall everything. It just doesn't work for what we're doing and what Max needs to get through all this long show. And I mean, Max never stops. There's no breaks. He's got a lot on his plate. So how I make my changes, I wear ear monitors like the band. I'm wearing the same thing that all the band members wear currently with Jerry Harvey Roxanne's, tried and true, been with them for a long time. I have a belt pack that I wear, so I'm wireless, which allows me to run and make quick changes if I need to. But it also allows me to hear exactly what each band member that I'm working with needs, or what they're hearing. So I can just select the mix. You see the faders jump and change for every person. So when someone turns my direction, one of my other band members, I can make adjustment. Most of the show, 98% of the show, I'm sitting in Max's mix. I sit with him the whole time because it just...
So when you select a mix there, it goes to your ears.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I should have made that clear. Yeah, when I select any of these are band member mixes. Whenever I select them, I hear exactly what they're hearing. The only difference being that I'm not in their environment, especially with Max. Max's environments, he's got a wall of subs behind him for feel. They're a little far behind him. They're about 10 feet behind him, so it's not ideal positioning, but it works for what our stage allows. So I don't have that feel. I don't have the feel of the acoustic drums. So it's a little bit of a, you got to shift your mind a little bit. So what I think sounds good here, it's different up there. So I have to know that adjustment. And that's just like any monitor engineer will tell you the same thing. You're not in their environment, so you don't hear exactly, but it's pretty close. It's what I'm giving him is what he's getting in his ears, but it's a different feel up there. So the Bricastis in my rack, M7s, are my favorite reverbs. One of them I currently have on the bass drum for Max, and the other one's on the snare drum.
Only for monitors, or goes to the front?
Just for monitors. I'm completely only monitors. There's 3 of us on this tour doing monitors. We split it up. We split the band up fairly equally now. Front of house is obviously completely independent of all of us up here on stage, so we can do anything we want up here, and they don't even know what's happening out there. So those are just for Max or whoever else wants to hear some reverb in their ears up here that I take care of. I also have onboard waves in this system. So SoundGrid, yeah. It's a Quantum 7 Digico, so it's a fully redundant system. Two engines in the desk, 2 servers, SoundGrid servers, 2 computers running all that as well. So everything's fully redundant. And we do a fair amount of, Max likes a little bit of effects in his ears. So I have those obviously for the kick and the snare. I have 2 others for the kick in here, 2 other more for snare. I have a little slap delay I put on the snare drum as well to give it a little space. And then I have 3 different verbs that I can use for the toms drum, for the rack and the floor. They're pretty consistent. They're all kind of sitting there, not doing much, but one I found that I'm liking right now is in waves for the toms. The Bricastis for the kick and the snare. Just
What do you like in the wave sound grid?
I'm using the H verb a couple places, and the Renaissance fir also. I kind of want 2 more Bricassies, to be honest. The wave stuff's great, but there's just something about that Bricassi that just, it's very musical and just sounds nice. So works really well on the drums. A lot of waves plugins. I try not to do too much, but at the volume I have Max's ear mix, it's a little, I've got some safety stuff in. You can see this is his mix currently. I have the old tried and true API 2500. It's a waves plugin. It's not the rack unit, but I have that across his mix, and it's taken a little bit of those transients off because it is, Max has got its, he's got it louder than I would want it, and but that's just where we're at. And so I try to, it's taken just a little bit off, so in case something were to happen, he won't get completely full on distortion. But
And he has his own volume control up there.
he does not.
He doesn't.
So
So the overall level is yours.
it's all, I'm in full control of what he's hearing and how it works. And we've been doing it this way for a long time. I send my mix out of my racks to Matt Payne, Drum Tech World, and in his rack, I have 2 Albatross P9H, I forget the actual model number, but they're headphone amps, hardwire headphone amps. There's 2 of them in his rack running in full redundancy. So, and then we have wires that come up to Max's seat. So when Max has his ears on, he walks up, sits down on his seat, and he knows right where to plug in. There's 2 jacks on a 3D printed block that Claire had made me. And so he sits down, plugs into either one, main or spare. They're identical, can't tell the difference. And so he knows if something were to fail, he just moves his jack over to the next one. Knock on wood, we haven't had any failures, but the hardwire Albatross amp is fantastic. It rocks. The belt packs that we're using are great too, the wireless, but if I don't need him on a wireless, I don't want him on a wireless. So he's so good about just sitting down and plugging in and going for it. So it works really well. And then obviously the subs are behind him. But
And the volume comes from you, not from Matt.
correct. Matt has them in his rack. And the reason I have them in his rack is that he's closer. So I still have a 15-foot cables that come up from the rack, from the amplifiers to Max's seat. I would love to be able to put the amplifiers with Max by him, but there's just no real estate. Over the years, Bruce has come up on Max's riser and doused him with water. Not a good place for electronics. So we have them in a rack, they're protected. So I have a little bit of signal loss from the amplifier up to the seat, but it works. It's working fairly well. I actually just had Jerry Harvey 2 shows ago come out, and we fully checked everything and seen how much signal loss we had, and there's minimal high-end loss with the cables we're currently running. So it works really well, and it's not a wireless, which in this day and age, wireless is a challenge right now or it can be a challenge. So hardwire is the way to go if you can. So for microphones in the drums, pretty standard stuff. In the bass drum we have Shure 91A, Beta 91A. I also this year new is the Biodynamic TG D71, I believe. Hopefully I said that right. They're 2 plate mics, the 91, they're sitting in there side by side. We kind of use them as main and spare. We're trying the Bier out just because it's a little different tone signature. I'm kind of using them in, the 91's my 90% of my sound, the other one's just kind of sitting there in case something were to happen, it's ready. The snare drum is straight ahead SM57. And then I think we have a Shure 137 underneath for the sparkly part of the snares. The toms are Heil PR28s. It's kind of a random mic, not a lot of people use. We've tried a lot of stuff, and these Heils, I put them on there, and it just, for the way Max plays, it just got a nice reaction for him. New this year, we're doing the Earthworks for cymbals. I think it's the DM25s underneath each cymbal and the ride. One of the things that I do that's a little different than I've done for anyone else, when Max goes to like his side stick sound, he wants that very loud and predominant in his mix. We used to do a little clip-on mic on the snare, but when he's changing snares out during the day, it just kind of got messy. So what I do now is I just take the SM57 mic and I land it in 2 channels. And the second channel I keep off until he goes to the side stick sound. And I play with time and phase, and I EQ a little bit. And so when he goes to the side stick, I can just slide that fader up for him. And it brings up a nice just crack when he's sitting there with his hand on the drum, and it works really well. I just have to know when he's going to do that. So I watch him. When the second he goes back to snare, I pull it out so it doesn't crush his ears. We'd have a talkback mic. It's a little baby, I forget the model number, I apologize. A little shotgun mic pointed kind of at Max's head down by his right side, and he's got a switch. He also has that same mic pointed forward, so he can listen to Bruce if he needs to hear things, and how he has control of those. So they're 48 phantom powered 48 volt mics, and to make that on a switch where it doesn't pop in his ears, with the Quantum 7 Digico, I have the switches actually firing macros on my console, basically just turning the mics on and off, muting, just a mute thing. Very simple. Just got to run two XLRs in the snake somehow and get them to my desk directly. But it allows Max to listen to Bruce when he turns around, or he can just step with his right foot and just talk to me. And they work fantastic until Bruce is playing guitar. And then they pick up all the guitar, and it's loud. So, but during the day, if the stage is somewhat civilized volume, it allows him to communicate with me. Or if Bruce turns around and calls an audible, which is a lot, it allows Max to be able to hear. Max is usually the first one to hear what Bruce is called, and he needs to be the first one because he has to typically start most songs or give Bruce the tempos for each song. The stage is very loud, so sometimes communicating is very hard sometimes, but we all have talkback mics. I can talk to Max at any time. I've actually over the years had to tell him a couple times what song I think Bruce is doing, but I'm also very reserved in doing that until I know 110%, because I don't want to tell Max the wrong song. I can talk to Matt at any time. Matt can also talk to me. So if Max is something's happened, a microphone has moved or something, it's hard for me to get away. I have help under the stage, obviously, from our audio team, because they have a lot on their plate as well. But Matt Payne, I can let him know, like, hey, that cymbal just moved 1 degree or something, it came loose, or this has moved, or a microphone has moved or something's bothering him, and we talk constantly, and it works really well. It's the only way to do it. I mean, every tour, if you have ear monitors on, you need a communication system. So with 3 of us doing monitors, it's great, because if I'm hearing something that I don't think is right, I can just check with them and see if the other side's hearing the same thing I'm hearing, and they'll be like, oh yeah, there's a problem there. Let's sort that out. And so, yeah, it works really well.
Mighty Max Weinberg on the drum.